Greetings, everybody. My name is Grant Saunders. I'm the Regional Manager of JCTS in New South Wales ACT. I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this country, the Awabakal peoples. We're also bordering on my own peoples, the Warramai peoples. I'm also Biripi. And today we're talking about racism, but I'll hand it over to Michelle. But before I do, I just want to pay respects to other people who are joining in today, to Aboriginal people, Torres Strait Islander people, and our allies. Thank you. There you go, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. Yeah, my name is Michelle. I work for JCTS as well. I'm the Aboriginal Cultural Educator for S18, which is great. So just a couple of things. I'd also like to just acknowledge all the different places that Aboriginal people are joining us from today as well. And I'm on Kaurna country, but I was originally from Wakka Wakka country. Just a couple of things before we start as well. Is that we will be having incorporated Menti into this as well. So maybe if you have your phones ready next to you, you will need them as we're going through for you to go in there. We're not doing Q&A as we go along. You can keep some of the questions. You can write questions if you want to, but at the end of the day, we're going to have a session at the end for questions and answers. So keep them there, or you can definitely still put them in the Q&A, but we'll be doing them at the end. So yeah, so I'm very excited to be here and to start. Now, the reason that we were also asked to do this day, and this would have been Friday gone, March the 21st, so a week ago, because it originally that was the day, but there was too many things happening given that Close the Gap was the day before, and that we also have our own webinars this week on the Tuesday, so we pushed it back a week. But the reason was that on March the 21st, globally, it's the International Day for the Elimination against racism. And this year was really significant as well because it was the 60th year. So this day started with the UN, and it was in South Africa as well. And it was about a peaceful demonstration, and the 60th anniversary was all to do with, there was a peaceful demonstration and police came in, opened fire on this group that were doing nothing wrong but talking about about racism, and there was approximately 60 to 70 people that were killed on that day. So globally it was a day to remember that. However, in Australia, it still is on that day, on the 21st, and to the left, well, to my left, hopefully it's your left as well, what we do in Australia is that it was done, I call it dumbing down a little bit, because it was then Harmony Day. So Harmony Day, and at those of you involved in schools and even in a lot of organisations, they changed the day to Harmony Day, but then that was more about celebrating multiculturalism in Australia. And just recently, on the other side there, in Australia, the day has, in many schools, and it's just gone, it's changed to a day called Be a Buddy, Not a Bully. And it was more about having empathy and kindness towards each other. So you can see from what the day started out to be to where it is now celebrated in Australia.
And Michelle, we can share what the impact is on this day ourselves, but we just wanted to hand it over to the audience to participate in this question and have your own self-reflective responses. So please take the QR code and see if you can answer this question. Just an open-ended sentence about what you think the impact is to celebrate multiple events on the same day. This is really good. Belittles the original concept, learning about other cultures, minimizing importance of each one. Yeah, significance can be lost. That's really good. Too much. difficult to show support for all events, confuses messaging and core purpose, takes away the importance of each one, minimizes the importance of each one, muddles the messaging. Excellent. That's really good, because it's exactly what that does. Because as Michelle pointed out, this is a celebration or commemoration and an opportunity to actually engage in what racism is and how we can, prevent it from happening. It's a time for school students to engage with the question, how they can address it in schools, but the opportunity is lost when we start celebrating it as Harmony Day and ask students to bring in their favorite multicultural food, which is, as people have pointed out, are important things to do, but we could do them on separate days. That was the main point.
Yeah, and definitely, because I think sometimes too, what it's meant to do is the word racism is actually taken out of both of those days. So harmony and being a buddy, not a bully, even though some of those things are inherent in racism, I just feel like, we've gone, I don't know, we've gone backwards a little bit, and it's like not really tackling the word and really tackling what it is that we want to do, which is racism, which is minimizing the importance of each. The day waters down the message, some of those things that Grant has gone back to, which you guys have all been putting up, which is fantastic to hear.
Thanks everybody. So we thought that this webinar would be really good for you guys to get to know Aboriginal experience about the impacts of racism on individuals, and every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person will have experienced racism in different ways. So we just want to start with Michelle's personal story, and then we'll get into mine.
Yeah, sure. And, like obviously, we have limited time, and, how long is a piece of string, and what is your story and how it is. I think what my intent is that just, that racism is alive and it hasn't gone away. And it's also, when you're an Aboriginal person and you're speaking about racism and what it means and doing it all the time, and the toll that can actually take on yourself as well, and all the triggers and things. So Grant and I have just decided to share like a little bit of our personal story, because I think that's one of the ways that you can really learn, by having yarns, with us, and just hearing, the stories, that none of it, and there's a lot of other Aboriginal people online who have similar stories. But like for myself, like in the growing up in Adelaide, even though I was born in Queensland, the photo that you see there is like the little me. But then I also come from a family of 6. That's myself with my 2 sisters and my 3 brothers. And that was like in the 70s, when we were all going to primary school. So we were all there together. But it was, what I've got written to the side, the jokes or the comments that cause offence, abuse, the harassment, the intimidation activities, there's kind of the things that I had put there as words, and for visuals for it was, you don't, and this is, this is who we are, and we had each other, and it wasn't until you went to school that, it wasn't labelled as racist, was anything to do with Aboriginal people or school, or they'd put on, a film, and there's Aboriginal people, half naked, standing on one leg, holding a spear and having a corroboree, and then they'd just turn around and go, "Mum, that's your dad," like, and they all just like start laughing. And how you actually feel about being that Aboriginal person, and not really having an understanding of what racism is, or how you're supposed to respond to it, or how it made you feel in the actual room. And so then when you go home and you're like with your family, that's your safe space. So, you didn't want to go to school, want to learn at school, and I didn't want to have anything to do with school as well. And each and every one of us, like, and this, like I said, there were 6 of us, we had kids that went to the schools, that lived around us, and we were never invited to any birthday parties. No one was allowed to come over our house. We weren't allowed to go over to their house because they were scared of what I might do to, you know, it may seem really and really silly to, you know, like, well, you know, that was, and so, you know, we had corroborees in our backyards, lived next door to us, boys who were in the same grade as one of my brothers, he was taking money from people to come over so he can come see the corroborees that we do in our backyard at night, which we never did. We never did, so I don't know what he ever did with the money on there. But like you know, can sort of more internalize it and talk about it like now. But the impact that that actually has on you as a person growing up has probably, and I can't speak on behalf of my brothers and sisters, but just like for myself, I think some of racism, if you've experienced it, is very internalized. And your race can be internalized in who you are as a person, and what you actually do with that and how you cope with it is an individual story. It's an individual journey. And so when I reflect on how that has made me feel in all of those things over, you know, to the side, which I, you know, don't really need to go into detail of what they were, because some were really horrific and very, yeah, like you just don't want to talk about the kind of names and things that you were actually called. But, you know, 40 years on, it still affects you. And, you know, when you still, to today, like go into a shop or go into a place and you're still treated as a second class citizen. I walked down, I'll just get, because it's only for like for time because I need to move on as well. But I went into my one, this is, and I'll finish on this story because my daughter is getting married, and I went to a shop just recently, to fairly posh shop, to go and find an outfit, and I didn't, not one person came up to me to say, can I help you? What are you looking for? Is there anything? It was like I was looked at like I was in completely the wrong place. So I actually walked out of the shop and refused to buy anything from there anyhow. But still today, some of the triggers and some of the things like really upset me on the day, and it still happens. So I'll leave it there for now. Grant has a chance to share his story. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Michelle. And like you said, there are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us who will have their own stories to share. And the point is that, you know, we make up 3% of the population. And so a lot of non-Aboriginal people joining today might not have even met an Aboriginal person until today. But moreover, if you have met someone, may not have developed a further relationship with that person, you know, spent more time with that person to understand their experiences and the impact of racism on them. A lot of people might not, you know, recognize me immediately as an Aboriginal person, but in the small town that I grew up in, Taree, on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, everyone recognized me as an Aboriginal person because of my last name and because this is my family. This is my father's family. This is my father here. And he had 10 brothers and sisters. We lost 2 people before this photo was taken. These are my grandparents on my father's side. My Uncle Steve, my Auntie Val, my Uncle Al, my Uncle Russell, my Auntie Kim, my Uncle Mick, and unfortunately we've lost Auntie Pam and we've lost Uncle Dooley. But you can see that, you know, our family are all shades of black. And I gravitated towards my father's family because, you know, of the number of cousins I had on this side of the family, because every member of this family had kids, and we all grew up and we're all similar ages, and grew up together and played together and did lots of things. We gravitated to our grandparents every weekend. We'd get together. But, you know, my mother was English, Scottish, Italian background. I actually did a DNA test recently, and I found that I've got more Scottish in me 30% than I do Aboriginal, which is 16% on the DNA scale. But I didn't grow up with a kilt, and I didn't learn Gaelic. You know, I've got Irish blood in there as well. I was grown up identifying as an Aboriginal person. And because of that, I had to cop a lot of racism as well. In primary school, it was the 70s. And so, just like Michelle, the racism was in your face, the jokes, the name calling. I got called Bung, I got called Coon, I got called Abo. I even got the N word at one stage in high school later on. But there were all these assumptions, but I'll get into passing first, because in my hometown I couldn't really pass because of my name and my family and how big it was. But if I went into someone else's country in another town, a lot of people wouldn't recognize me as an Aboriginal person because of the color of my skin. And there was a story about the first time I actually came across institutional racism within my high school. We were introduced to this white teacher who was to speak about Aboriginal history for the first time. This is the first time in history that we had been provided anything about Aboriginal people apart from, you know, those paintings of Aboriginal people in the bush and the corroborees that Michelle had talked about. So this white teacher decided he was going to teach Aboriginal studies, and he started to describe Aboriginal people from his experiences of working in the central desert region of Australia as the most filthiest people he had ever come to meet, alcoholic, no hopers, sitting around doing nothing. And because of my skin, I could pass as just another non-Indigenous student in that class. But his words affected me so much that all that history in my childhood of racism that I absorbed all started to well up in me, and I broke out crying in front of this teacher, and his jaw dropped. He didn't realize I was Aboriginal until that moment, and I had white friends either side of me consoling me, and one saying, "Are you going to say something?" And I was just, you know, I was just devastated. I was shaking with so much trauma from what he was saying. And after that, I got the class to sign a petition on, you know, what this white teacher had shared with the class, word for word. Got them all to sign up to it, took it to the school principal. We had a meeting with my father, and he talked about his experiences of racism as a kid, being the first Aboriginal kid to actually go into a public school for the first time. And we, you know, got the principal to, I guess, say that he didn't tolerate it, but that teacher got to keep teaching. He wasn't suspended for it, which is, I guess, what we were thinking might happen. But one positive that came out of it is that he got more involved with the Aboriginal education assistant at the school and got more involved with the Aboriginal students there. And so his mindset had changed somewhat, and his teaching changed for the better because of that. So I never experienced racial profiling. So I've never had a taxi go past me, and I've never been into a shopping centre where a security guard has pulled me up I haven't had police come along and tell me I'm loitering and to give me move on orders like a lot of dark skinned Aboriginal brothers and sisters have to experience. So I never had to experience that racial profiling, but I experienced vicarious trauma through that experience that they went through, because even though I'm fair skinned, I'm feeling it as well. But I also at the same time acknowledge that I have fair skin privilege, and that is something that I think a lot of us fair skinned Koreas, Murrays, could do well to also acknowledge that, because we do, just based on the color of our skin, have access to certain things over and above people who have got darker skin and that still fit that stereotype that non-Indigenous people have of Aboriginal people. So that's what I wanted to speak about. One other thing I'll just say is that the racism that we experienced at school, the name calling and that sort of thing, you learn to sort of cope with it. You either ignore it or you face up to them, or just let it wash over you. But the first time I experienced institutional racism outside of the school was when we came across police officers in our local district who were picking up our Aboriginal kids off the street and abusing them, pepper spraying them in the faces, taking them to the cells and fire hydrant, hosing them, dropping them out in the middle of the bush to walk home. These are the things that Peter Dutton allegedly got away with as well back in his days as a copper, back in the 90s. But they did far worse than that. So Shawnee's telling me we're doing well for time. I've got 1 minute. I think you're all grown people. I think you can handle this story, but these coppers, these 4 coppers, actually, we got them arrested for sexual assault against our Aboriginal women, our Biripi women. They were picked up off the side of the road and taken to the cells and raped. This is the early 90s. They went to face these charges of sexual assault. One of them committed suicide before they faced court. But the other 3, 2 of them were promoted to detective and still work in the force. One was stationed out to Dubbo, still works. One's retired. So that's the sort of institutional racism that I was introduced to at a very early age. I was 20. I was a youth worker for an Aboriginal youth organisation. And that blew me away, to say the least. I thought it was just name calling and it ended at that, but it was far more entrenched in a system that is meant to be protecting our people. And there are far more, instances and examples of institutional racism that, every Aboriginal person here could share with you. And it's important to share because racism, the term, is an abstract concept that we could have got into and talked about academically. But it's not until you actually hear real stories like that that you appreciate how impactful that is on our people. And I just also want to say to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening, viewing, that I acknowledge that sharing these stories is traumatic. We do carry a cultural load, and I just want to say that we are here for each other, and if anyone needs to talk after this webinar, please, I'm available, and so is Michelle. So we'll move on to the next slide.
Yep. Thanks, Grant.
this
Oh, we're
is,
doing this one first. Sorry.
yeah, this is another opportunity for you to engage. So if you haven't got the code already locked in, we just wanted you to think about, you know, a word. This is a word cloud associated with the term white privilege. So I'll just give you a minute or two to just do that. Very good. Excellent responses, everybody.
Mm. Wow.
Fantastic.
Right.
You're all very bright people and you understand what this all means,
Yeah.
but it's important as, you know, when it comes to being culturally safe in your workplaces, to really reflect on your positionality in society. And it's not only white privilege, it's privilege of those who are upwardly mobile. So people who have access to an education, have access to finances, have access to be able to get a job, have a history of really good education, health. So there are all things that a lot of black and brown people in this country do not have. So I think this segues into the next thing, which is a little bit lighthearted. I think you would have all experienced the ray gun effect um, uh, and seen some of her dance moves and probably tried them yourselves. Um, the kangaroo and the water sprinkler and all those other original moves that she had on the Olympic stage. Ew, but was she the best girl in Australia or just privileged? Again, going back to access, it was obvious that from this article by The Guardian, that the whole thing from the IOC acknowledging breakdance as a valid sport that should be introduced into the Olympics to the actual qualifying events was a huge, quickly turned around event. And so the people who actually had access to that were a minority of breakdancers in this country who are mostly non-Aboriginal, including Reagan. But I just wanted to share with you that Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people in this country have been hip hopping since the early 1980s and resonated with breakdance and Black American pop culture in general. And have been breaking for a very, very long time. And I just wanted to share with you some of the skills that our own people have. And this B-girl scar could have represented Australia at the Paris Olympics. So I just in that quick snippet, you could see that she had some skills that could have qualified her definitely for the Paris Olympics, but didn't have a look in. And a lot of there's so many more. But if you punch in the word Australian B girl in your Google, all you will get is ray gun. 10 pages probably before you can find our own people in there. But we'll just move along now. Michelle, you can talk to this one about self-reflection.
Sure. One of this little short video that we have here, because one of the things that we want to get across and point of what we were trying to do today as well is to get people to self-reflect, because unless you start doing that and you start listening to other people's stories, you've got to ask yourself the hard questions as well. And so this one here, which is was from the United Nations, it really resonated like with me as well, because people who are in here talk about like, when was it that you actually knew about race, which is what I was saying back in my story at the beginning. Like, I don't know when the word race came up, like in my conversations growing up. I don't know when I've suddenly, that we're Aboriginal and that we're different than other people, because that's, you just grow up in your own environment. You grow up in who you are and with your family, and that everything is fine. And it's not until you realise that you actually are in the minority, like Grant was saying, and we all know that, we're only 3% of the total population, of Australia. So we would really like people, because it's also about how you struggle and what racism has actually done to people, and that a lot of the people who are listening now are, working alongside and are colleagues of Grant and myself and a lot of Aboriginal people as well, and others, but we're all in the field of health. I went into education as well. Like, I wanted to change, that I could be a change agent, and what it is that I could do to be able to do that and to educate people. But my stance has always been about people being able to self-reflect, hear the stories, listen to the yarns, but at the same time, have those conversations as well. So I think this is really good as well. And it's about the mental health and looking after people's mental health as well. So if we just play that, Grant, please.
I think belonging is acceptance without exception. You are here as you are. You're understood and you feel included. Inclusion to me is what belonging means.
How old was I when I became aware of my race?
I say I was quite young, maybe around about 6 or 7.
Then you go out, you go to school, you meet people, and you're different to everybody else.
I probably became aware of my race in my later years.
I remember being chased during recess because they'd never seen a brown person before.
Has my mental health ever been affected by racism?
Racism is not something that I've ever had to face.
I would like to say no, but sometimes it does, it happens.
I have faced things that I didn't think I deserved.
Have I ever been racially abused after a game or match?
I have not.
No.
Yeah, I've been called quite a few words in the heat of the moment.
Can I be sure my name won't stop me from getting a job interview?
Yes.
I think with my name, certainly it's different enough to warrant people to think twice.
Do I see people who look like me in positions of power or authority?
Well, yes, I do.
I do see people who look like me in terms of race.
I think there are only people who look like me in positions of power and authority.
I've surrounded myself with some strong Aboriginal women that actually have some power in the community. However, when I step out of my community, I don't see it.
If I'm stopped by police, can I be sure it's not because of my race?
Yes.
I think my gut instinct is to say it's not because of my race.
Your first thought is it because of the colour of my skin or my race?
Can I spend time on social media without fear of being racially abused?
No, I don't think so.
I really need to guard myself.
Do I fear being stopped more frequently by airport security because of my race?
No. Yes. Can I be sure my child won't experience racism at school?
No, I can't. I feel like
Like you're different.
Maybe the meant well.
I can't believe I don't feel safe in my home.
I was not worthy.
Go back to your countries, close the border.
Isn't that the world is meant to be all of us together, equally?
No matter how challenging the conversation, we need to talk about racism and the causes of inequality. By taking a stand against racism, we can build a fair and equal society for all.
So I'll just let people just do their own reflection on that, and if there's anything you want to say or make a comment about or ask a question or relate to, hopefully we'll have enough time at the end for people to do that. But also just want to reiterate what Grant was saying at the beginning, that, you know, we really encourage people not to leave here feeling bad, or if there are any sort of triggers or whatever for people, please, you know, contact us or send us an email or whatever. We'll leave our details at the end. However, one of the things we want to do as well, because I mean, racism hasn't gone away. It's there. It affects people in so many different ways. Some people choose to talk about it. Some people not choose to talk about it. And even ourselves, you know, and other people listening online. It's what you choose to share and when and how you cope like with that. However, there's so many things out there as well. I would highly recommend, and I've always been an advocate for the Racism It Stops With Me campaign. And so I would encourage people, even for your own interest, or to go and have a look for that too, because we're always looking for people, and I think you always want to be an anti-racism ally as well. What is it that I can do? So I've just listed some of the things on the side that you can do. And I think, I mean, my background is education, and I've always been an educator and a teacher, and I love teaching people all the time, from little kids all the way through to, you know, like to adults. And I'm learning, and we all learn every single day. So it's about educating yourself. And if educating yourself, and that's one of the takeaways that you would take from today out of the list perhaps that I've got there, then I would recommend that you go on the Racism It Stops With Me website and have a look, because there's so many things on there as well. But the other takeaway is that I think it's really important, and I know that you listen with intent to understand. There's a real art in listening. You can say that you're listening and you can do all of the right things, and we can all walk away from here going, you know, something that has triggered you to become an ally, but actually listen with intent. That is the key word for me. And then to own your own privilege, like Grant was saying, you know, and that kind of racial privilege, the white privilege, the white fragility, that word, you know, that one, fragility, as well. It's okay to acknowledge that, and it's okay to say that I have that, or I have experienced that, but it's what you do with that. So instead of saying no, you know, that's not me, personally, I actually prefer people to say, wow, you know, I am. And I have those kind of thoughts, and I recognise my own privilege, but what is it that I can do with that? So I'm going to own it first, and then I'm going to challenge the stereotypes. I'm going to challenge those things, and I'm going to be, you know, an advocate. So next time I see something, I'm going to call it out. Next time I see something, what can I do? What is it? Oh, okay. One of the things that might be, I remember this, wonderful webinar that you came and listened to with Grant and Michelle, and it was like, oh, what was that website? Oh, yeah, that was the Racism It Stops With Me. What campaigns? I'll go and have a look on there, or reflect, or come back and listen to this as well, because I forgot to say at the beginning that it's being recorded as well. But it's about raising awareness, and so wherever you are and wherever you're listening, whether it's in your home life, your work life, your family now, in the future, or maybe you were one of those the kids that were saying those, hopefully you weren't, nasty things to people. But it's like, well, I need to raise awareness now, I need to do about it. And it's about, don't speak over our voices, but amplify our messages. One of the things that I truly believe in, it's working with us, it's listening with us, it's walking alongside of us, and having those conversations as well, and building relationships with people, and being brave. Hold your friends and your family accountable when you are ready. When you are ready to have those conversations, you might be sitting there listening to some, racist joke that has been said at a family barbecue, and it's like, okay, I've heard this, but how can I address it? What can I do to call it out? How can I become that anti-racism ally? And it's going to be different for every single person, but it's something that we would hope that you really do take hold of, and to want to do something about it, because like I've written there, it's like, if you see it, you hear it, or you know about it, then don't be silent. No, you need to speak up. You need to be able to do something, but you don't want to put yourself, in danger either. I think, that over time you'll know your battles that you can take, or how you can educate yourself. How can I speak? What can I do about it? How can I call it out? And it all comes back to the top one, about educating yourself first. It comes down to listening. It comes down to owning who you are, challenging yourself, raising awareness, working with us. And the last one is unlearn your own inherent racism.
These are great strategies, Michelle. And, I raised earlier that as a survival mechanism for myself, I let it wash over me, when I heard those racist jokes or innuendos, those stereotypes that were shared in my presence.
Yeah.
But now I would never do that. I would call it out straight away. Even if they don't recognize me as an Aboriginal person, I would let them know. And yeah, again, like you said, it's all about informing yourself, educating yourself as much as you can, so that you feel empowered to have those conversations with, whether it's family members, friends, other people who bring up these racist statements, or make stereotypes about Aboriginal people or other people of colour. That you do challenge them. I hope you do, and that's what the Racism It Stops With Me campaign is all about. Is that it's a ripple effect, isn't it, Michelle? It's about
100%.
each individual, having that power to have those conversations, and hopefully you have an impact on those people that you speak to, and then they go away and have an impact on someone else because they've learned something from you. And this is the sort of stuff, Michelle, if if our schools were teaching this on this day, the 21st of March, instead of Harmony Day, or,
be a buddy,
not a bully, if they were actually acknowledging this day for how important it is, the history of it, and that the opportunity is there to teach exactly these things, these strategies, in order to combat racism, I think we'd be in a way better place. A way better place in this country.
Yeah. Oh, at 100%. And sometimes, we can be here for a long. I'm just really wary of the time as well, because I really would like to, get some people to ask some of the questions. But not so long ago, not everyone knows my background, but I am a junior primary teacher. Education has always been my thing, and I have been in a school where I was not that long ago. you know, within the last 10 years where, and it should never have happened, but the principal of that school, I had to go into their office because the parents have asked for a real teacher to teach their kids. And that's one of the saddest parts ever in my teaching career. Didn't stop me though, didn't stop me, kept going. And, you know, it was okay. They couldn't control what I presented at the assembly with my kids. So, yeah, anyhow, so many stories, but yeah, hopefully some of those things that we've highlighted that you take away from today. So, Grant, where are we up to? Questions? What is this one?
I just wanted to also add that you can do this Harvard implicit. Can everyone see that? Can you see that, Michelle?
We can see the questionnaire. Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
the test, yeah. So this is something that Ty Clayworth, one of our Aboriginal MEs, had pointed me to. It's a really good online test that you can do to rate your implicit bias. So it starts off with these questions. So about implicit bias around race, but also sexism, you know, your attitudes towards women, you know, there's all different types of tests you can do. And it's really interesting because as an Aboriginal person, I took this test on racism and actually found out that I have implicit biases. And this is based, the whole concept is based on the education background that you've got and what you've been privy to as far as like media representation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and other people of colour. So it's really telling and it's a really quick test that you can do for yourself, and this is all a part of that self-reflection exercise. So I'll get back to the Mentimeter because we want to, can you see that now?
That's
Mentimeter?
the Harvard implicit bias you've got up, the picture.
Okay,
Yep, so you've got to go
I just got to
over
go
one.
back to this one. Can you see that now? We're back on to...
No, still the Harvard
back into our Mentimeter.
bias, the picture.
Oh yeah, but it's the
No.
Mentimeter, yeah. Wait up. Sorry guys, just bear with me.
It's all good. I think you're there now.
Yep. All right, so question and answer time. We've got 12 minutes left, so you can, again, use the QR code to ask us any questions and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah, more comments?
Yeah, comments as well. You can do a thumbs up emoji.
You can do whatever you like.
Or hearts, whatever. You know, going in.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the love. What would you like to know more? Okay, yeah. Ah, okay. Is it over here?
Sorry? Oh, the questions are they at the side?
Yeah, I thought they would come up here, but anyway, okay. So, resources for children.
Yep.
Good question. Do you know
Question
of
about
any?
resource. Sorry.
Yeah. Any good resources
for children? Resources for children.
Yeah.
Is that the question? Oh,
Yes.
okay. Yep. Do you want me to answer some stuff?
Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're going? Oh, for sure. I think one of the key things in finding out any information or for children, for adults, for anyone is to be really wary of Googling things. So if you Google Aboriginal, you're going to come up with like, I don't know how many hits you're going to get. You're going to get like an awful lot of hits. So I always say to my students to use Google Scholar, which will narrow it down like a little bit. However, there are some great resources and there are great places to start. And one of the things that, you know, we give our registrars in SA is, you know, compiled some resources to narrow it down for people to localise it and to go to, for children in particular, so go to an Aboriginal owned publishing house. And I can't even speak today, I've been on meetings for too long. Magbala Books is one of them. And we can certainly send out links to, I'm happy to send out something to people and as well, some links to some resources. But it's going to the places that are recognised rather than try and find it, and at least you'll be able to narrow it down. So if you go to an Indigenous owned publishing house, then you'll be able to find lots of resources that are specific for different age groups and different genres and that as well in there. So hopefully that answers the question. So it's looking for reliable resource places to go and look rather than just you know, you will be hit with so many different things. So I think that's one of the things that as JCTS staff too that we try and work on, is to giving people resources and trying to localize it as well. So some that work in, you know, for us in SA, you know, you would have different ones in different states, but some are generic as well.
I just wanted to add, Michelle, too, that, you know, the school curriculums have had the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander curriculum for a very, very, very long time. And they should have resources. They have resources at their access. So if you've got kids going to school, you really should, if your kids aren't coming back and talking about, you know, what they learnt today about, you know, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, history, politics, then maybe there's something wrong with the way that that curriculum is being rolled out. And so as parents and citizens, community people, we should all be holding our schools to account, because in my experience as an Aboriginal Studies lecturer at a university, I always ask the question to all my students, what has been your experience of Aboriginal education up until this point? And it's always, and you know, the last time I asked that question was in 2022. And I got from, you know, kids fresh out of high school, 18, 19 years old, who had no experience whatsoever, to people who celebrated over NAIDOC, but that was the extent of it. And then, you know, people who got warts and all, you know, the whole history around massacres, about assimilation policy, everything that you'd want to know to start to get more of an understanding. So really those resources should be with your schools. And so, and if they're not, then, you know, we as concerned citizens need to put them to task and get them to be teaching that curriculum. What else have we got here? Do you think the government is spending the billions of dollars on harmony and racism, closing the gap effectively? Good question. Well, like we said before, I think they could probably put some more money into the original date that this was meant to commemorate, and obviously they're not putting enough into that initiative around the International Day of to eliminate racial discrimination. But when it comes to, you know, teaching, so are we spending billions of dollars? That is questionable, wouldn't you say, Michelle? Like,
yeah, it's an
really?
interesting question, because when I read it, I was like, I don't know, because I mean, I just don't have full trust in government, so, you know, I don't really know where they're spending billions of dollars and whatever on. I just know from right now, like honing in on racism, honing in on the day that what we intended to do today, which happened like a week ago, is, you know, this was an international day. Australia chose to change it to Harmony Day. And I know that a lot of people listening would relate to Harmony Day, didn't really know, perhaps. On the 20th, the day before, that's Closing the Gap Day. So we have Closing the Gap Day on the 20th. Closing the Gap has been around for over 10, 20 years,
Yes.
you know, off the top of my head. And, you know, and what actually has changed and where have we actually chose the gap. So I think it's about spending money on campaigns that, you know, you change the name to, but what difference has it actually made? And when I go back to, well, we won't go back to it, but one of the things when I was saying, and where my thought process goes about what can you do, how can you become an ally for stopping for race, it's about educating yourself, it's about reflecting as well. So yes, government and monies and where it goes, and, you know, and whatever labels we want to put in on it, but going back to that very, very first slide on the right, where it was, we don't have to go back to it, but if you remember when it was, the other side was be a buddy, not a bully, because it has only just happened. That photo, which I didn't say at the beginning, and I got permission to use it, there are 2 of my 4 grandsons. So they were that, and that was taken on the day, just a week ago, where their school had those T-shirts that they were wearing about be a buddy, not a bully. And they actually, that was like from the school. So they have now changed it to that particular day, because then it's going that one step back. It's like, okay, like this is about harassment and bullying now. And then it was like about, you know, embracing multiculturalism. But it really, you are avoiding the big R word. The elephant in the room is the word racism, and addressing what that actually looks like. And so if I would even ask my little grandsons, like, well, what does that actually mean? They said, oh, we really like the T-shirts because we get to wear orange shirt today and not our school tops. Interesting.
And
Yeah.
sorry, that's on that element of the question around, you know, racism. And yes, we could be doing more on that. Closing the gap, we have to talk about, you know, as a separate issue, even though it is related. But we need to, when we look at our health, this comes back to the social determinants of health. We need to look at all the different aspects that impact our health. So we look at housing, we look at employment, we look at education, we look at our intersection with the criminal justice system. I mean, we in this country, we're still overrepresented in the criminal justice system, in our prisons. In the Northern Territory, we've got 100% Aboriginal people locked up, you know, and until those things change, it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars you pour into closing the gap initiatives. If those other aspects of our health aren't addressed, then, you know, we're not addressing it effectively, which is the short answer to that question. We've got 1 minute. Thank you for sharing pieces. Thank you for saying so. Thank you very much for sharing, Grant and Michelle. Thank you. Do you think racism towards Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people should be addressed separately and given specific emphasis, or should racism be tackled as a broader issue affecting all cultures? Oh, a bit of both, I reckon.
Absolutely. In the short amount of
start with
time
that
before
piece.
this is about to end, obviously, personally, for me and probably for Grant, and in the parameters of what we work in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, then that is definitely what it's about. However, racism is racism.
Exactly. And if you need to know a little bit more and would like to know a bit more, there are our contact details. Come and visit us at JCTS, and we have, you know, videos up there. We have other resources that you can access. And we're regularly posting, you know, all the activities that we undertake within our teams. And, you know, I see our jobs as, you know, really important because we're a bit of a safety net, you know, when it comes to the history of poor education in this space, in Aboriginal education for our people, and the fact that a lot of our people still don't know enough about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, history, and politics. We're there. We're here to, you know, fill you in the gaps that you've missed, that you've, you know, got from that education. So please reach out. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for listening and joining us. We don't know who I don't know who's out there, but you know, we don't get to see that side of it. So hopefully, yeah, we did. So yeah, and thank you, Grant, for sharing the space with me.
Oh, you're too deadly. Thanks you. Thank you,
Okay.
Michelle. Love you.
No worries.
Love you
Everyone
so.
have a great day.
Bye bye.